Who was Cleopatra really? Hi everyone, hi there, welcome back to the channel. She was more than just a queen. She was a diplomat, a lover, a strategist, and the last active pharaoh of ancient Egypt, Cleopatra VII. History remembers her as an exotic temptress who captivated two of Rome's most powerful men. But Cleopatra wasn't just a pretty face. She was a brilliant ruler who fought hard to protect her kingdom. So what was Cleopatra really like? Let's uncover the truth behind the legend. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC, during the last days of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great. Her early life was a mixture of privilege and danger. Growing up, Cleopatra received a traditional education for a royal girl, learning subjects such as literature, science, and mathematics. But she also learned how to be a politician, studying the skills of persuasion and negotiation. Most unusually for her time and place, she learned the Egyptian language and immersed herself in Egyptian culture. Some say she even styled herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis, a powerful symbol of the Egyptian state. When Cleopatra was just 18 years old, she co-ruled Egypt with her younger brother Ptolemy XIII. It might sound shocking now, but sibling partnerships were common in the ancient world. It was expected to keep the power within the family. However, this arrangement didn't last long. There was tension between the siblings about who should hold the power. And when Cleopatra tried to assert her authority, Ptolemy responded by throwing her out of the palace and starting a civil war. She fled across the border to Rome for help. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, Ptolemy declared himself sole pharaoh. He had Cleopatra's statues torn down and removed her image from coins. But soon he would regret his decision to reject his sister. Now alone and thousands of miles away from home, Cleopatra needed allies, and she had only one person she could turn to, Roman statesman Julius Caesar. In 48 BC, Cleopatra made a bold move. She had herself smuggled into Julius Caesar's chambers, rolled inside a carpet. Now, whether this story is true or not, we may never know, but it makes for a great story. To hear the full account, you'll have to watch our video on how Cleopatra seduced Julius Caesar. However, we can say that she definitely did arrive in Rome and met with Caesar. In fact, we have evidence of this in contemporary documents. The rest is just speculation. After meeting with Caesar, Cleopatra returned to Egypt victorious, where she and her brother ruled together peacefully until Ptolemy died in 47 BC. Cleopatra was once again the sole ruler of Egypt. Now free to make her own decisions, she continued the work she started under Caesar, improving trade with the Roman Empire and expanding Alexandria's influence across the Mediterranean. With Caesar's help, she had successfully defended Egypt's independence and secured its place as a Roman ally. But soon her enemies in Rome would target her again. Shortly before his assassination in 44 BC, Caesar had a son with Cleopatra named Caesarion. But to secure his power in Rome, he never publicly acknowledged their relationship or legitimized their son, leaving both vulnerable. Cleopatra, however, never forgot her son. She had coins minted in his name and built a temple to him in Alexandria. Soon after Caesar's death, Cleopatra's problems multiplied. Her former ally, Pompey, came to power in Rome and attacked Egypt. She managed to negotiate a peace treaty with him, but her relationship with Rome was fractured beyond repair. Still, she held on to hope that she could restore order to Egypt and the empire. And to do so, she needed a new ally in Rome. Cleopatra caught the attention of another influential member of the ruling class, Mark Antony, one of Rome's most powerful generals. In 42 BC, he traveled to Alexandria to meet her. We don't know much about their first meeting, but it must have been pretty impressive since she welcomed him with a massive celebration. Antony was greeted with a feast and entertainment, including a reenactment of the Argonautica, the legendary journey of Jason and the Argonauts. And it seems that Cleopatra played a role in this performance. During their meeting, Antony recognized Cleopatra's intelligence and ambition. He understood that she was not just a beautiful woman, but a shrewd politician with a vision for Egypt and the empire. Soon after, the two became lovers and had 3 children together. But their romance was scandalous and threatened the balance of power in Rome. Cleopatra's rivals in Rome, the Octavian family, used their relationship to turn the Roman Senate against her. They accused Cleopatra and Antony of plotting to take over Rome, spreading rumors that Antony had given her dangerous powers over him. They claimed that Cleopatra had put a spell on him, turning him against Rome. Of course, this wasn't true, but propaganda like this undermined Cleopatra's relationship with Rome and set the stage for her downfall. The final confrontation between Cleopatra and the Roman Senate came in 32 BC. The Octavian family went to war against Cleopatra and Mark Antony. They fought for control of the Mediterranean world and the future of the Roman Empire. The conflict reached its climax at the Battle of Actium, a decisive naval battle that took place off the coast of Greece in 31 BC. On one side was the fleet of Octavian, commanded by his adopted father, Agrippa. On the other side was the fleet of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, commanded by Antony himself and his trusted general, Dolabella. The battle was fierce and lasted for several hours. In the end, Octavian's fleet emerged victorious. Now that Octavian had defeated Cleopatra and Mark Antony, it seemed as if their relationship was over. But in reality, their bond only grew stronger. Instead of surrendering, Cleopatra and Mark Antony retreated to Egypt. Side by side, they faced the consequences of the battle, knowing that they had lost the support of Rome. Cleopatra, however, was determined to make the best of their situation. She used her wealth and resources to build up the defenses of Alexandria, turning it into a fortress that could withstand the coming attack. She also sent messengers to her allies in Syria and Arabia, asking for their support, but it wasn't enough. In 30 BC, Octavian's forces arrived in Egypt. Cleopatra and Mark Antony knew that they couldn't win the battle, but they refused to surrender. According to legend, Mark Antony took his own life before the city fell, believing that Cleopatra had already died, but she was still alive. When Cleopatra heard of Mark Antony's death, she too took her own life. According to the historian Plutarch, she let a venomous asp bite her. Whether this story is true or not, we may never know, but it makes for a great legend. Whatever the truth may be, Cleopatra's death marked the end of an era. She was the last active pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Her death also marked the beginning of a new era for Egypt itself. The country was absorbed into the Roman Empire, and its ancient traditions and customs were lost forever. It might be easy to assume that Cleopatra was a femme fatale, a temptress who destroyed empires and led men to their doom. But this is not really true. Sure, she had affairs with some powerful men, but it wasn't all about sex. It was also about politics, power, and the desire to protect her homeland. We often remember her for her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, but we shouldn't forget that she was also a brilliant ruler who fought hard to defend her kingdom. She was a strong, intelligent, and ambitious woman who was willing to do whatever it took to protect her people. She was not afraid to use her sexuality to her advantage, but she was also a skilled diplomat and military strategist. Cleopatra's story is a reminder that women have always played a vital role in politics and power, even in the ancient world. She was a trailblazer who broke down barriers and defied expectations. She was a woman ahead of her time, and we should celebrate her legacy today. So what do you think? Was Cleopatra a victim of Roman propaganda or the ultimate political player? And in the next episode, what happened to Cleopatra's tomb? Has it been lost forever beneath the sands of Egypt? Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.